In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious. And never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hi everyone, how you doing? Guess what? You're on Surviving Together. I'm Mac. This is a safe place for all types of trauma survivors to come together and connect with each other and heal. Let's see, we've got Shannon's here. So glad you're here. I caught just a little bit of you guys' live with Amanda today. So I honestly don't really know much what you talked about. I was just trying to say hi to everybody and then get out. David had just gotten home. So Crystal, good to see you. How are you doing? How is work going? How are you feeling? Have you gotten any news from your doctors, Crystal? I know you were waiting on some test results and stuff. If you want to share that, I would love to know how you're doing. Body Illusion. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Deidre, yay, you're here. Oh, I'm so glad we got a crew together, guys. This is Loaded Questions. Yeah, I know, but we care about you. We care about you. And I just want to see how you're doing. We are going to be starting our grief series here today. I've really been trying to decide like how much to do between now and then the end of the year. I think maybe at least every other, maybe every third, I might do something in the grief series. I don't want to do too many in a row, really bog everybody down and bum them out. And, we got Thanksgiving coming up and stuff. So we'll deal with some subjects and then, we'll wait, and New Year we'll be dealing with some even more of them. A glucose tolerance test. I am familiar with those. Have fun. Is that testing your A1C? Yeah, so I was with my first husband. I went through all of this and testing, and he was diabetic, insulin dependent diabetic. So, well, low blood sugar, that's definitely want to see where you're at. I mean, could have been you had a low blood sugar that particular day. You didn't eat very much, whatever the case was. Oh, you're comfortable with the rest of the tests? Oh, good, Crystal. See, Audrey actually got a letter in the mail. Wow. I know there's the internet in Ireland because you're using it right now, but yeah, that is, but if you're happy with the GP, great. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. I know Janet definitely probably could. The glucose tolerance test is going to check about how well your insulin is working. So insulin is made in your pancreas, and that's what helps to break down our blood, break down the sugars in our body and use them for energy. And so my assumption there is that that's the test that they're doing, but it could be wrong. Oh, you think the GP came over from Ukraine? There's a Ukrainian who works in my son's shop, and I guess they are just having a blast talking to each other, trying to figure words out. And I'm just so glad. I'm not sure if hers is a blood test. Okay, so you're not doing the A1C. Drink, yeah, they'll give you a drink that has lots of glucose in it and some. Wait a few hours, take your blood again, and see how well your insulin is doing in breaking down those sugars. A1C test is different. You have to do like a fast for 24 hours, I think, and every time you have to pee, you pee in a jug, and then you bring the entire jug to the doctor's office. Ugh. But then it gives you an idea as to, there's a number scale as to how well your pancreas is working. I believe that's what the A1C is. Cool. You hear a lot of Ukrainian when you're out and about in Ireland? A1C is just a blood test now. Oh, awesome. Pete's big old jug. Ugh. Who wants to have that in their fridge? And you can't leave it unrefrigerated. So I have to apologize a little bit. I got ahead of myself last week on Saturday when I was talking about body memories. I really should have gone through my overview first, but I hadn't put it all together. I think I told you guys. So we did our refresher on body memories. But before we get into some of that, I want to, most of everybody in here, I'm pretty sure, yeah, is aware of the other channels that are out there that are doing mental health work. Let's see, Shannon's going to be doing some stuff. I'm on the tail end of my cold, Deidre. I actually just took a flu bomb before this, and feeling good now. I've still got a little bit of a cough, and I'm just hoping that like Tuesday, I'm just like at 7 days. So I still got a few more days. If it's not gone like that, then I'll probably go in and see and make sure I don't have an infection in my lungs, or that it's not starting to creep down there. It's not a sinus infection or something like that. So we'll see. So far, so good. Oh, yes. Also in our mental health community, we have my other's keeper. Crystal was just on again last night, she says. Jimena, Magic of Healing. She has been, she does a show, Comfort Corner, that is on every day at noon Eastern, I believe. I've got most everybody I can think of in the community, I think, linked on my main page, so you can see them all there. At the very top, it'll, I think it shows Jen's channel, and it says list, and you can click that and it will go through the list, and you can click right on the links there. If anybody has a channel and I haven't gotten you up there, I haven't gotten your link up there, please just let me know. Email me, survivingtogether@sass@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to put it up on that main page. Oh, you guys decided to do it together. So all your shows will be together, or at least when you're not flying or whatever. That's awesome. Well, great. Well, I already spoke with Jimena a little bit about, doing something. I've emailed Keela about potentially doing something with her. I just found out she's had more than her share of tragedy, and one just a few weeks ago. So not sure, when that might happen. But David is going to be on my other's keeper in a few weeks. So we're excited about that. He'll be talking about his new company. and he's been doing a lot of work on it, and he's got even more to share with you guys. I think it'll be great. You may trade whose channel each week. That's awesome, Shannon. So you and Jimena will switch off on who's hosting. Perfect. But you're still doing it together. You guys work well with each other. I haven't caught all of your stuff, but from what I have, it's been great. You've gotten a good crew in the chat. And yeah, I think you guys do really well. Misha, hello, how are you doing? Aw, Audrey Gore says to Crystal, admire your strength in sharing your story. And it's so wonderful. And Crystal, if you don't know it, we are all proud of you. You have come so far. If there's the definition of a survivor out there, it is definitely you. When I say you are strong because you're a survivor, you're on that list because you have accomplished so much. And even on your worst days, when you feel like you're not moving forward or you're not getting anywhere or that you're back to where you started or something like that, you get to look back at all the stuff that you have done and that you have accomplished and use that to propel you forward a little bit, you know, because you are doing fabulous. Shannon says it's been really helpful to us. I am going to assume you are talking about doing the channel with Jimena. And so I'm glad that you guys are both getting something out of it. I mean, that's the purpose of it, right? And I know everybody in the chat is as well, from as involved as they are with that, with all of your discussions. So keep going, keep it going. But you're welcome, Crystal. You deserve it. And I know how that can go. You're going along and you've accomplished so much, and then you feel like you're just stuck again, and you go, "What the fuck?" I mean, seriously. This was me yesterday. Okay, I had some time off from work, and I had so many things I could have been doing. David wasn't here, so it's like I didn't have somebody else to not tell me what to do. I mean, I don't know. It's just like there's somebody else there. You feel like you should be doing something. It just, I didn't have that. And it was good that it was this week because I dropped him off at the airport on Friday. So Saturday is going to be a day for me, you know, my first day without him. And we're going to have to just, I'm going to have to propel myself forward each day. It's weird having somebody here all the time and then, you know, just, and then not. So it'll be good, but it's definitely going to be an adjustment and a change. And you know, a lot of us trauma survivors don't do so well with change, especially when it's pretty significant. But although he won't be here, you know, physically, he's just a phone call away. So I'm not too worried about it, but definitely going to have to make some adjustments. Misha, you are feeling a little bit better? That's good. Uh-oh. You opened Messenger? Was there something bad on there? Today is World Kindness Day. That is awesome. If you haven't done a kind act for somebody today, do one. Even if it's for yourself. You know, you can do something really nice for yourself, even if you're just at home. So do something nice for somebody today if you haven't already. Well, we should try and do that every day, right? Just little things. And I know that my son and I are working on it, and it's really great. It's interesting to have a relationship that is transforming from the child to the adult, to less of the mother, more of the mentor aspect. I mean, I'm always going to be his mom, and he's always going to be my baby. That's just the way it is. But you've been kind to your cat and to your husband. Great, DeAudrey. Congrats. That's awesome. I was nice to my son. I think I've been pretty nice to David too. I mean, I don't know if I've done anything particularly nice like for them, but oh, that's cool. One of your students gave you a free Chinese food for supper, Kim said. Great. Misha, did something happen? Did you get some blowback from anything that's been going on? This is a real safe space, and I want to keep it as drama-free as possible. So if there's something that needs to be talked about, please message me and let me know. I'd rather talk about it, personally. And if there's something that we need to address here on the channel, then we'll definitely do that on Saturday. Always things happen. Okay. Yeah. Message me about it, Misha, because I do want to stay on top of what's going on. And if there's anything that we need to talk about here, then I will. That actually segues pretty well into what I was going to do as well, which is share my page with you briefly. Okay, so here is my channel. And if we go into one of these, we should have all this already. Nope, this one doesn't. Oh, I thought I had this all pulled up and I must have gotten out of it. So hang on one second. Bear with me, guys. Okay, so like here's today's live. In the description beneath every okay, I've got to stop. I've got to share a different screen now since I had to get a second one up. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to put this up bigger so that you can see. In every description, I am going to have a trigger warning. There is also the link to Surviving Together's PayPal if you wish to donate. StreamYard prices are going up, and they're $45 a month for the basic package now. So anything you guys want to do to help fray those costs is appreciated, but absolutely do not feel like you have to or feel bad because you can't. Being here and supporting us and supporting each other is the best thing that you can do. But I do want to go over the rules here, just because I know this has been a little bit of an issue on some other places. I don't have many. Be respectful of others in the comments in the live chat. I have not had any problems thus far, so you guys have been great. No mean people allowed. We just want to be supportive of everybody because we talk about a lot of different difficult subjects here and a lot of very, very personal subjects. That being said, also, because this is also highly personal, yes, it's on the internet, but it's also not gossip. So if you hear somebody's, say, particular stories, those types of details, it's not gossip just to spread around and talk to everybody about. So try and keep some confidence when it comes to that. And lastly, there's no religion or politics to talk. There's no really reason I think that we would have to address that unless it's like the politics of SA laws, something of that nature. Otherwise, it's just not anything we're going to get into, the who's the president now and all of that kind of stuff. Not what we're about. And guys, that's it. Seriously. I mean, if you're somewhere else and you're bashing Surviving Together or you're bashing me, I'll speak to you about it. If you continue to do it, that we may have an issue. You may have to be removed from the channel. But that's we're talking extreme behavior. I mean, if you come in here and you're like all nice and polite, and then like behind the scenes, you're like, oh my God, you're just a total troll. Yeah, we might have a little bit of an issue, but it's going to be a case-by-case basis. And I haven't had any problems so far, so we'll just see how things grow. Oh, this is nice. Misha says, I'm actually working on my version of my truth as we speak. I'll be posting later this evening. Okay. I will love to see that. I hope to get a notification when you've posted it. That'd be great. Let's see. Okay, so we went over the rules. We talked about that. Da, 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 da. Okay. Now, dun, dun, dun. Let me scoot over to my outline. I do not know how much of this we will get through today. I've got quite a bit that I want to talk about. First, just as a brief overview of the grief series, what kind of things am I thinking about for this series? Well, I really want to touch on pretty much everything, main topics. I mean, this is such a huge topic. There's so many things that you can talk about that, I mean, there's people that specialize in this. There's actually somebody named Teresa Baldassari, I think her name was, that is a grief counselor. She was in Jimenez Live the other day and is going to be starting up a channel here, I guess in a week or two or something like that, focusing on grief. So there, we've just got another one. And as soon as that site is up and running and there's, content that's going to be on that, I will, we'll see how things go with that. And we'll let you know and can go over and support her. And we can see how she handles things and what she has to say. I love that there's so many of us in this field now in the mental health community that are connected to one another, because we can complement each other's shows. I think it's important that we're, checking, that's part of our support network too, right? Checking in on each other, and being able to be a part of this wonderful community. What you hear here, what you say here, when you leave here, let it stay here. Yeah, it definitely, listen, you use your judgment. Everybody's an adult here. You may choose to speak about somebody else's experience because you're talking to somebody, important to you, a supportive person, and comparing it in regards to your experience. I'm not saying you can't ever talk about anything that's talked about in here, right? Let's just use our judgment and never do anything out of malice. Don't state things out of malice. And let's just try and be positive and uplifting with each other. That's the best we can try and do. We are a village. Girl power, DeAndre says. Yes. Well, we do have a couple of males. We do have a couple of males who are around, so I won't exclude them. Act out of love, never hate. The best we can do. Yeah, that perfectly said, Misha. Perfectly said. So what are the types of things that I want to cover in the grief series? Well, we talked about body memories on Saturday, and I introduced that back again just so that we could remember how our body remembers all the stuff that we go through, all the trauma that we go through. And that's stored in our body. It's stored at a cellular level. Our body can learn. And that's how it learns to react to trauma. And different types of cells, they've discovered, different types of bodily cells can do this same learning. It's not just neural cells. So it's not just your brain that's remembering something. It's your body, because your body, when it comes to trauma, has to act instantaneously. Our amygdala, our lizard brain, right, has to go. And so that's why the cells remember what to do, because they do it quicker than your brain can think, right? So I think that's why it's important that we remember how much our body does retain. You know, it's a hard concept for some people to wrap their head around, that trauma's stuck in your body, or that by getting rid of trauma that you could get rid of pain, physical pain that you're feeling. But remember, if we're not dealing with what's going on in our lives, if we're not dealing with that trauma, all we're doing is stuffing it down, and we're not releasing that. And the stress of constantly, dealing with being more on an alert level, what trauma makes happen, our parasympathetic nervous or sympathetic nervous system is just acting up, and we're just constantly, and when that happens, the chemicals in our body are reacting to that. Our immune system's suppressed. We get sick easier. There's been evidence and studies out there that it's easier for you to contract illnesses such as cancer, and autoimmune diseases, and also chronic pain. It can be trauma stuck in your body can be the result of chronic pain, or can result in chronic pain. And that's a really difficult concept for some people, but it is true. And so we need to keep that in mind, that as we're going through this, we're going to be talking a lot about what's inside of us and our feelings and our emotions, because that's what grief is. We're processing all of that. Hey, Martha, how are you doing? Glad you're here. Georgia said, hearing that from my psychiatrist really helped me to accept that the pain was from years of flight or fight and repressing emotions. Yes, absolutely. Misha, I think there might be a correlation between trauma and going through all of this and the stress and your migraine issues. Yeah, definitely would agree. 100%. I mean, I don't know everything about your situation and your health and whatnot, but it certainly sounds like it could be definitely a valid potential cause, right? So my main goal today is going to be just addressing, how does grief help us heal? Why should we even be doing this? What do we get out of it? I also want to address in detail the 5 stages of grief. How do you grieve? What do you do? What do you need to go through? What specifically are we talking about? I also want to spend a day talking about dealing with loss during the holidays. And really, that could be dealing with stress during the holidays, because whether it's because of family or people that you have to see or people that you can't see, both are extremely difficult. So how do we get through the holidays the best that we can without gaining 15 pounds, right? Martha says, working with my childhood trauma and my constant fright state of mind. Yeah, it's so common. So common. Nisa says, I was so upset last night that I literally saw red and white flashes, no other vision. Wow, it makes so much sense. It sounds like ocular migraines. I used to have ocular migraines, and only one eye, weird enough, but I get these spots that would just come and completely fill my vision. And my eye just felt like it was full. Like I don't know, when you get eye googers and your eye just feels all gooky, it would feel like that until all those spots then receded. I didn't have any pain with it. You can get the migraine from it too. I did not. I was put on beta blockers for a number of years, and then I just stopped. And thankfully, I never had the problem again. So why did I get it when I was like 15, 14, maybe somewhere in there? Why did it start? I don't know. There was no one particular major trauma at that point in my life that I can remember as to why that would have happened. But it did. Mostly in your right eye. Yeah, mine was in my right eye too. Oh, hey, Seventh, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Yeah, make sure it. I could say, who knows? It could it be something that's in your brain that's causing that? Could it be because of the trauma and the stress and everything doing that? I mean, I don't put anything past our bodies nowadays. Oh my gosh. Deidre says I was unsure whether the migraines were stress related until the woman who took over when I left my job started getting migraines for the first time in her life. Oh, holy moly. Yeah, I think you can say maybe your migraines were stress related. How have your migraines been since you've been out of that job, Deidre? I know that you've had other stressors in your life. Look, all these moves have been obviously quite taxing. But how are you doing in general with your migraines? I hope they're better. I really hope they're better. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. A couple other subjects that I want to deal with are the topic of complex or complicated grief. And this and trauma, CPTSD, and grief. It may be a part one and part two. I may kind of combine those two. I'm not really sure. Depends on how my research falls out. If it's like it is now, I'm probably going to keep it on 2 separate days. And then the last one that I want to do in this series, obviously we'll pick up grief again sometime else down the road, but I want to talk about grieving to heal our inner child. So anybody who has had trauma in their childhood, or if you did not have trauma in your childhood, but you only had trauma as an adult, you can use the same steps that we're going to do in terms of healing yourself at whatever point it was that the trauma came. Okay. The reason I want to do it last is there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I thought it would be great for us to kind of walk through it together and maybe start some of the work now. Talk about it a little bit each show that we're doing our grief series. And by the end of it, let's see where we are. Let's see if anyone's gotten anywhere. Have you made any headway? And one of the best ways of starting this is by writing, or video journaling, or however you want to get the information out. But have it on video, your audio, or on or writing it down. And there's 2 different things that you can do, and it depends on where you are in your healing journey and how much you know about yourself. The first thing is to write a timeline of your trauma. And in doing so, note if there's any blank periods. If there's anything that something happened here, but I don't know what. Mark those out too. You want to try and get as clear of a biography of your trauma life as possible. Now, this may be stuff that you've already done. You may have done, work with your therapist, whatever. This is just one way of doing it. And I just thought it would be something that, if we continue at this and we continue to pick away at this and we continue to come back to this every now and again, I think it can really be a good piece of our healing journey. So I was just reading your comments, really computer related. Yeah, I know that some people really get eye strain if they're at the computer too long. One of the reasons I got these glasses are computer glasses. So it's anything that I can see, about a hand away. I have these on and it's so much better. Oh, this is precious. Martha says my younger one really helped with my understanding my terror of failing. Weirdest dream of a 6-year-old. That's fabulous. I often feel like my epiphanies come at the strangest times. Like I will put 2 and 2 together and finally make 4 when I'm thinking about eggs. You know what I mean? Just to be totally related, and all of a sudden you go, oh, that makes sense. I can't put that together. So that's my idea, my kind of overarching story arc, I guess you could say, in this grief series and kind of where I want to end up. I think it'll be especially interesting if Teresa gets her grief channel up. I definitely would want to do something with her, and mentioned it in the chat, and she was all for it. So we'll see what happens with that. I think it would be great to have somebody who is a certified grief counselor come on. Definitely looking to have some of you guys on if you want to share your stories as we're working through handling our grief. Similar to what you were doing on Jimena's story, but we'll be focusing a little bit more on just the trauma aspect of the grief. Give me one moment. Okay. So, how does grieving help us heal? Well, first, what is grieving? What does it mean to grieve? It's the process of experiencing and expressing emotions and reactions associated with loss. And I think it's really key to hone in on that word. It's a process. Who knows about its timeline? It takes what it takes. It's one of the things that we'll talk about. So how does it help us? How does going through our emotions and dealing with our feelings help us heal that piece? Well, first off, we have to acknowledge the loss. We have to not accept the loss. So that's like the last stage when you go through the 5 stages of grief. You've got denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Okay, so acceptance very last. So our first step with our grief is that denial. And you want to get to a point where you can accept what's happened. That person is no longer here, whether that's physically no longer here, like on this earth, or whether it's a friendship that you've lost and you two have parted ways. Maybe it's somebody who's just kind of drifted off. and you're ghosted, you know? It gives us a chance to put all of our emotions out in front of us and to really look at them and go through those feelings one by one. And that's why I really do feel like, you know, journaling or writing a letter, however you feel, whatever format you like doing it, I think is extremely important because you can look at each of your feelings, you can put them down, you can talk about each of your feelings, you know, on a separate piece of paper if you want, however you want to organize it, but get all of that stuff out. Get it out of your head. Get it somewhere you can look at. Because I don't know about you, but if I'm just thinking in my head and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to meditate now. And I'm going to think about the loss of this particular friendship and what I'm feeling about that. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try and grieve and try and process or, you know, explore my emotions or whatever. I never end up doing it. Something else catches my brain, something else goes through, whatever. So if I write it down, it's right there in front of me and I can look at it. And maybe the next time I go, I'm writing, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to write about that feeling. I'm going to explore this feeling. I'm going to think about this feeling. And I have something to focus on, to look at, and to say, I can go, whoop, just wrote all over my notes. This is what I can go through. Crystal says, I get the grieving process for death, but I don't understand how to grieve the abuse and what it took away from me. Crystal, I think that you're really going to get a lot out of this series and what I want to present through this. There is, I will try and find it again. I know I have it somewhere accessible. There's a video by a particular therapist, and he was talking about healing the inner child, right? And so really that's dealing with all of your trauma. And it's not a one-step process. You know, you could deal with one feeling or one instance of trauma and grieve that and come to accept it, but there could be so many others that you still need to deal with, right? Just because you're going to grieve something doesn't mean you're tackling it all at once. I think you're really going to get a lot out of it. And the way he explained it was, it just was so great because he used his own personal experience of going through looking at himself and healing his inner child and what the grieving process was like and how that acceptance came and when it came. And definitely for him, it was the same type of thing as my epiphanies. It was just out of the blue. It was just out of the blue. And it was just this feeling that washed over. And it's kind of like, you know, you take all of that grief and you take all of the icks feelings inside and just flush them all out, right? That at some point, you've gotten through all the steps, and therefore the grieving process allows you to release that pain. You release that feeling. So I will get that. I will paste that that video up. And if I don't, Crystal, and you want to watch it, it's I think about a half an hour or something. Like it's a really good watch. Email me and remind me so that I get that. But I'll try and post that right after this live. Sorry, guys. There we go. You know, this initial stage of acknowledging our loss can be really difficult. We can actually get stuck in any of these stages. Any of the points along the way in terms of grieving, we can get stuck at. And it can be very exhausting in the beginning, not wanting to accept that somebody's gone, not wanting to even acknowledge that it's over. That type of internal struggle between, yes, it is, I know that person's gone, I'm no longer speaking to them, and no, that can't be. What else can I do? If they're still alive, can I repair this relationship? What did I do wrong? Why is that? All of that. It can be exhausting. So I think especially in the beginning, as you're going through, write things down so you can look back at them. And, it will help I think it will help in terms of reconciliation of some of your feelings. So this flows into just what we were talking about, in that when you grieve in a purposeful way, and by that I mean this whole process, actually working through it as a process, not just living day to day and just, trying to move on, right? Really looking at your feelings, taking them out, washing them, hanging up to dry. Look at them. Feel them. As uncomfortable as they are, if they are, just allow yourself to feel them. Allow yourself to have them. Bye, Misha. When we're looking at our childhood trauma, it's really the loss that we're grieving is the loss of everything that child, that our inner child, that child who was traumatized. It's the loss of who that person could have been. It's the loss of all the things that you didn't have, a normal love of your mother, a non-abusive home environment, everything that goes along with that, those happy memories that you may not have. That's the loss that you're grieving. And through this, it's okay to feel sorry for yourself. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to be angry. Remember, that's a stage in our grief. It's okay. You need to feel everything in order to put it in its place, in order to truly let go of still being that traumatized little girl or little boy. Thank you, Martha. Rest well. Thanks for stopping by. We'll talk to you later. I know there's a bunch of people today who couldn't make it for the live, but are going to catch us on the replay. So that's great. Shannon says, yes, I've had so many different feelings associated with my grief. Your feelings could run the gamut. And it's okay. Every single one of them is okay to feel. No one can tell you any differently. For me personally, again, that is why when I look at them on paper, I can see, okay, yep, I've talked about my anger, and I've talked about how pissed off I am, and I've talked about how sad I am that this person isn't there, and I'm talking about how upset I am at myself and disappointed because I think that I was to blame, or that I could have done something differently and this would have turned out right. Exactly, Mark. So glad you're here. Glad to see you. Feeling it doesn't mean you have to react out of those emotions. Absolutely. For me, feeling those emotions, reacting to those emotions, that safe space is the written word. Because I could say anything, I could feel however, I could do whatever. No one's there to judge me. These are just my words. And it helps me put everything into perspective in the bigger picture. Grieving is also going to, if we're doing it properly, help us gain some good coping skills, right? Because it's important that we have good coping skills to deal with these feelings, to deal with this loss. Community connection, social support, extremely important. Extremely important for most of us, especially trauma survivors. We feed off of that connection with one another, knowing that we've both been through similar type circumstances, that we're dealing with similar type issues, even if the specifics of our situation are different. As we go through this and we're exploring the grief process and we're talking more about it, we're going to talk about our coping skills and talk about a variety of them, from mindfulness to physical activity, to all of the therapies that we've talked about, art therapy, music therapy, animal therapy, everything that we have talked about that goes for calming ourselves and our sympathy, calming our nervous system down. All of that is going to come into play in terms of coping mechanisms when you're dealing with grief. There's not going to be anything really new that we're going to discuss, but we can see how these positive coping skills that we have been talking about for months now, how these can help us in almost any situation, almost anything that we're dealing with. When we're talking about healing, we're going to be pulling out healing trauma. We're going to be pulling out these coping skills. It's just a matter of what works for you, and what works for you in regards to one subject may not work in regards to a different subject. You may have to approach it differently. You may have to use a different coping skill. And that's okay. So just, know that you may not be able to approach everything the exact same way. Grieving also helps us in being able to go through whatever it is that we lost. And by that, I mean, if it's a loved one who's no longer here, grieving gives you a chance to think about your entire relationship with that person, the good, the bad. And as you're feeling these emotions, and as you're going through this whole grieving process, you're making connections with what happened or the lack of something happening. And this is where we can start to see some integration work being done. And this is where we're getting closer to that acceptance of what's going on, of whatever was the subject of our grief. The grieving process also helps us heal because by learning about ourselves in such a manner, by going through something so purposefully, you can't but help learn stuff about yourself. You can't help but become a more resilient person in dealing with the next loss. Not that it'd be easy, but there's a familiarity with going through the process then and understanding what needs to happen. And so this is all personal growth, growing as a person. And I truly feel as we help others through the grief process, we grow through that as well. When we can support somebody else who's having a tough time, who's just needs somebody to talk to, just needs an ear. Those types of deeds that we do, those types of kindness, that grows us as an individual as well. I'm just looking at some of the rest of these, see if there's anything else important that I want to bring up. Yeah. So the grieving process, dealing with our loss, when we get to the end of it, we're really able to put that loss into perspective in our life. So let's say that you are grieving the loss of your true identity, your authentic self, as they call it. And basically, anything you're really good at, you're innately good at, that's part of your authentic self, right? It's the other stuff that we got told, don't do that, don't say that, don't feel that we need to fix. So we grieve and we go through the process. And at the end, ideally, if it's something that's in the past, we're going to be able to put it into perspective and say, you know what? This is the most important thing that I've ever dealt with in my life. Healing my inner child. Trying to take the person that I should have been and the person I am now, releasing the trauma from the person you are now to be able to allow that authentic self to grow. That is what I want to see happen for all of us. Anybody who wants to go through this process of learning how to heal your inner child, let's do it together. That is my goal with you guys. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing on Saturday is kind of going through a little bit of a step-by-step of, okay, briefly, what are we doing to heal our inner child? What's our first thing? What do we need to get going on? And we'll have, like, I'll throw out assignments. You guys want to participate. If not, that's fine too. This is something I'm going to do to try and help my healing journey. And it was a few videos, the way it was explained just made so much sense to me. I can't tell you what it was. It was, anything in particular. It's just the way the steps were drawn made a lot of sense. And I'm going to try to reconcile those pieces of myself. And Mock says, knowing that you survived it before takes a huge amount of anxiety out of it. It can. You know, I don't think there's a single one of us that have not gone through a grieving process. It may not have been a purposeful grieving process. You might not have been, affirmatively thinking about the grieving and gone through everything. Some of us have. I don't think I ever have, not this purposefully. Any work with my therapist, I just felt like I never really got anywhere. It just kind of would be dealing with day-to-day life and talking about BS. And I don't think I've ever really gone through this. And so this is going to be a huge learning experience for me, I feel. It's going to be very different. So I think Saturday morning is when I'm going to start my writing, either that or Friday night, not sure which one. And we'll see Saturday how it goes. I'll let you guys know. I'll be taking my first step on my journey of healing my inner child. Good night, Audrey. Have a good one. Sleep well. A few other things, as we go through this whole grieving process, I hope that each of us can truly have an appreciation for life in general, how little time we really do have to do things, how much it takes out of us to hate or to dislike. It's so much energy. And does that person or that subject of your dislikeness, do they really deserve that mind space? So really thinking about our lives and the people in them and what's important to you. Mock says, Tim Minchin has a session where he talks about grief and connection to one song, and he says it beautifully. If you find that, let me know. Send it to me, Mock. I'd be very interested to read it, and I could put it up for everybody. So one of the other things the grieving process does for us is, as we're able to go through the grieving process, the hope is there will be a sense of accomplishment as you're doing this, as you're getting through this, as you're learning about yourself, as you're learning to let go. And that may be the impetus for change in other areas of your life. Other subjects that maybe you need to let go feelings about, or other difficult situations that you need to handle differently. This might be your impetus to be able to go ahead and do that change. So it can be very motivating for us in our lives. And grieving also, of course, facilitates closure, allowing us to eventually come to the acceptance of the loss, closing off that chapter, and truly allowing us then to move on. With that closure, we're not stuck there anymore, dealing with these feelings struggling with this loss. So really, and the closure can just kind of be coming to the end and just feeling that acceptance. Maybe you want to write a letter to your inner child, explaining everything, talking to yourself, telling them how it is now, that life does get better, that you do survive. Burn that puppy. You know, maybe you're going to have a day every year that you remember yourself as a survivor. This is my survivor anniversary. Whatever you choose that to be. And that can be very important. It's very empowering for ourselves. You know, Tim mentioned the name sounds so familiar. I am positive that I've heard him before. But when I look at that last name, all I can think of is Mnuchin, and obviously that's not right. That's U.S. government. I'm going to have to look him up again. I swear to goodness I have seen his name, but it's been a long time. It's been a number of years. And what do we want to talk about last? Okay. So the last thing with the grieving process that I want to mention is that there's no timeline on this, guys. Nothing that says you're going to be done in a day, a month, a year. And we'll talk about this when we talk about the 5 stages of grief that we go through. And you can be in 2 different stages at once. You can bop back and forth between stages. There's no right way to go through the grieving process. It is as individual as you are. And that's why it's so important that we each can support each other in whatever way that we can. Some people may just need to hear they're going to be okay. Some people may need to work through some complicated feelings about a loved one and a hated one. You know, especially when there's a familial tie to your abuser. Dealing with that dichotomy of feelings of, love them because they're my family, hate them because of what they did. How am I dealing with these conflicting feelings? How do I reconcile this? And you may not be able to. You may have difficulty with that. And sometimes talking it out and getting another person's perspective, all of a sudden it clicks and you go, oh, that's how I can deal with it. That's how I can mesh these 2 feelings together and come to an acceptance of how I'm going to feel about this from this point forward, how I'm going to feel about this person, where I'm going to leave them within my heart. And remember, guys, just because you come to an acceptance with something doesn't mean you have to like it, doesn't mean you have to agree with what happened. It's not saying it's okay, whatever it was. It's about making peace. And to me, that's what that last piece of this grief process is all about, that acceptance. is a means of bringing ourselves inner peace so we don't have that turmoil inside us that could drive us absolutely nuts. We can have 50 thoughts going through our head, and at the same time, we're stuck in a chair, not doing anything, not moving forward, not dealing with it, just there, existing through your life. It's hard. Living life can be difficult. We've all experienced our fair share of our ups and downs. And this is wonderful, Ma, because sometimes it just is what it is, and you have to accept that that was a chapter of your story. Yeah. That is definitely where I got to with my abusers, with some friendships that have died. They were meant to come into my life for a particular reason. And what is that reason? What can I take from this experience? What can I learn from this? Intellectually, I've gone through this grieving process in regards to my ex best friend. But I haven't done it in writing. I haven't gone through the process with as much purpose as I think I need to. Because I think there's still some resentments that I hold in there. I think that there are still some negative thoughts that I hold about myself, that things that I felt I did or didn't do that could have made a difference in that relationship. So I think there's definitely things that I need to work through with that. So it's not just my inner child that needs to go through the grief process. I got a lot of loss that I think that I need to be more purposeful in. And some I may discover that, I really have come to acceptance. I've made it through everything. But I think by at least going through the process of when I write it down and looking at it all, I can truly then say, yep, I'm through. I've really truly gone to acceptance, and this is what I've learned. This is where I've gotten. This is what I've released. This is what I've let go. And if you can verbalize that, if you can verbalize what you went through, if you can verbalize how you're coming to peace with what happened or didn't happen, or vis-a-vis a particular person, you really know that you've gone through the process. Crystal says, I learned when my mom died that there's a very fine line between love and hate. I had no idea how to process it all. Yeah, that's, especially Crystal's made no secret. She's been on a lot of people's channel. Her mother was one of her abusers and enablers of abuse within the family. And that's why I said, when you've got familial ties, it can be extremely difficult trying to reconcile those feelings and say, it's okay to still have love for a person because they are tied to you. And there may be a few good memories that you take from that relationship. Maybe there are a few good things that you can hold on to that were the good in that person. It's tough. It's really tough when you've got somebody, either within the family or slightly, uncle, cousin, some familiar relation. we'll keep working through it. Hey, Amanda, you'll catch the replay? Great. Like I said, I caught a little bit of your life today. I talked to Shannon about what you guys are doing. I think it's so fabulous, and definitely want to talk to you some more about doing something and having you on here, or I'll go on yours, or let's do some collab. So let's talk some more. Misa says, I deal with the primal wound loss. My mom at 17, my dad pretty much lost at the same time, but not. I have lost my inner child, who I was supposed to be, who I wanted to be, the mother I wanted to be for babies. After the fur babies, I lost my youngest, your middle child. Misha, that's right. And her youngest was brought back to life. I know loss. I can tell you how not to grieve. That is all I know. Oh, glad you're feeling good. 7. Naps are wonderful. Jimena, no worries. No worries with the email. The rest of this week's going to be pretty busy for me between working and a friend of mine is supposed to be flying in flying in town tonight. I don't know if that's going to end up happening, so I'm trying to grab some dinner or drinks or something with him sometime, and then putting David on a plane and getting ready for Saturday's live. Right. Pretty busy, so don't worry about it. I know that we'll connect. Misha, I hope you take this opportunity to go through this grieving journey with us. Grieving the loss of our inner child. And through that grief process, we learn how to tap into our authentic self. We learn how to piece that authentic self back together. We're never going to be the person we would have been without the trauma. It's just not there. But that doesn't mean we have lost our true inner self. We can find that person again. We can put some pieces back together, and then we can have new pieces to fill in any gaps that we have. And that's who we are now. A new and improved version. Lisa says, I can also tell you how important it is to love and to follow through with that promise by truly loving those we say it to. I can tell you how badly it hurts to see loved ones hurt, to want to take back things I've said, everything, and to never have that chance. Yeah. One thing I heard one time, I've struggled with some aspects of my mental illness about saying things, hurtful things. When you get to that point and that train has left the station and there's just no getting the puppy back, that's whoo, the train is gone and there is no stopping your mouth. And I heard one time, it's like when we say those things, it's like hammering a nail into a board. You can apologize, you can take that nail out, but there's going to be a hole. When we're not nice to people, when we say things we don't mean, when we're mean, and that affects somebody else. Can affect somebody else. And it leaves a hole. Kindness doesn't. And subsequent kindness can kind of patch it up, but it depends on what was said, doesn't it? How much was said, how well that hole could be patched. Sometimes we can patch a relationship, but that hole's always going to be there until that person learns to deal with that hole and the trauma that we caused. Your mother's last words to you were, "Don't cuss me, Misha"? I'm sorry if that's not funny, but I kind of think it is. Definitely not something my mother would say. I can't see it. Okay. Well, guys, I think that's about all that I wanted to talk about today. Just going over what I envision for talking about grief and starting this discussion on why would we even bother to go through this process? Why grieve? What does it do? How does it help us heal? When we go through this process for actual losses, there's also something called anticipatory loss. So if there's a situation, and this is very common in caregiver type situations, where you know you're going to lose the person, right? The person has Alzheimer's, dementia, it's, they're not doing well, they're on their deathbed, whatever it is, it's, that there's going to be a loss there. And dealing with it while that person is still alive, and that can be very tricky because you're trying to deal with something that is not here anymore, but yet that person is still here, and that and this can very easily morph into complicated, complex grief. Mock says she calls it pre-grief. It's so tough when we act out of turn and there is no taking it back. The damage is done. No amount of apologies or sorries can just fix it. And those are just some of the most difficult things to come to grips with. Because that loss, whatever it is, maybe we lost a friendship because of something that we said. We have to come to an acceptance that I caused this. I caused this rift because of stuff that I said out of anger or out of insecurity, whatever it was. I think somebody said in Jimena's live today that self-forgiveness is one of the hardest things in this world to learn, to get right. I 100% agree with that. There are some mistakes in my life that I've made that I still regret. The feeling from that regret is still so sharp. I hate the fact that I had a mental break. I hate the fact that I lost my job. I couldn't keep up. There was too much going on in my life. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't keep up with my production rate that I was supposed to, and my marriage fell apart. Things would have been so much different if I had divorced, but yet I still had my job. It's so much different. These last 10 years, 13 years, so different. But there was a lesson in there somewhere. And there's several. I know. And I think because when I think about it, there's still some sharp pain with that. I think I may need to write this out. I think I may need to deal with this some more. It's something I've been trying to deal with for the last 14 years and 13 years. I'll continue to. Hey, Rick. Glad you were here listening. Thanks for stopping by. We'll definitely see you tomorrow. Well, no, I can't say that. I'll definitely see you tomorrow. Maybe I'll see you Saturday. How about that? Oh, good one, Rick. Oh, Misha, I love you. Let's put this one up first. We all have our sorrows, regrets, tragedies, pain, every single one of us. The beautiful miracles that come right alongside that, how we choose to move forward through it all, that is what makes us in the end. That is our dash. Yep. Absolutely. It's our choice. Each and every one of you have a choice as to whether or not you want to go through the grieving process. Some people may have already done this. Some people may not be ready for it. And that's okay. But I'm hoping by going through this process, it's going to be the same whether you're grieving the loss of a person, physically, the loss of a friendship, the loss of your inner child. The process is going to go the same. And so that's what I hope that we can all at least get out of this by the end of this series. And that we have a good sense, a good idea of all the steps that we need to take and how do we purposely grieve to be able to come to peace, be at peace at the end of the grieving process. Amisha just put up a link to, I think, maybe something she has posted on her place. Is that on your channel, Misha? I'm not sure. Let me know. Well, guys, it is 7:30 already. Wow. So Saturday, I don't know. Part of me wants to do some more with the grief series just because we just kind of started. There will be at least a section in the beginning where we're going to talk about how we're going to go about healing our inner child and kind of talking a little bit more about the steps of that so that we can start working from now until we get to the end of the series on healing our inner child and addressing that topic. So we'll do that. And that may be a half an hour or so. I'm not sure if we want to continue on that or if I want to address something else. I guess we'll just kind of see what happens. Yeah. I think this is a great thing to keep in mind because as we go through our journey, the regrets that we feel, you may come across many of them. And Mox says, here's one way to look at it. If I could change anything, I wouldn't, because I might lose something I love about my journey because of it. And that is so true. I do believe that I try to think that the universe has a plan for me, or at least that I'm going through life with some sort of for some sort of purpose, that everything that I've been doing has been my learning experiences that have shaped who I am and how I see things. I do firmly believe that working with sexual assault and other trauma survivors is my life's purpose. It's what I was meant to do. And I had to go through all these experiences to get to a point where I would be able to be an effective person to help. Bless those who have never been abused, who help survivors. But there's just something about having gone through that experience. There's a connection that I can make to others who have been abused, neglected, that I can't have that same sort of connection had I not gone through all this. You know, I had to lose that best friend in the most awful, messiest way possible. I had to lose somebody I thought I loved in order to look at my life and feel what I really needed in it. What hole was he really filling? And that particular one, when I got to it, I had to realize that I was feeling more of a superficial hole because I wanted something, because I wanted to hang on to something. I wanted to believe that I had reached a point in a relationship. And my expectations were way too much. Crystal says the most effective counselors I've had are the ones who've gone through similar stuff. They get it. Yeah. I think it was one of the first lives that I did. And I said to everybody, you know, have you ever shared your story, your trauma story, your abuse story with somebody who has never gone through abuse? And they've just looked at you and you went, oh, man, that sucks. Sorry. I don't know what to say, you know, just like I'm sorry, you know, it sucks. And what else do I say about that, you know? And there really isn't much else that they can say. And there really is not much you can relate it to so that they can understand that type of pain. Dealing with physical, emotional, or sexual abuse or neglect, that type of trauma just leaves a particular stamp on you. And it's great because as we have similar experiences, though, as Jimena says, she appreciates my take on things. Well, we all come from a little bit different viewpoints, a little bit different backgrounds. Our trauma is not exactly the same. And so some of us, in the way we talk to each other, I figure out things just from you guys, which is great. Okay. It's getting really hot in here, and I was going to go anyway, so I am definitely going to sign off now. Thanks, guys, for stopping in tonight. All right, I hope to see you Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Have a great one. Remember, you are worthy, you are loved, you are strong, and hugs and love to everybody. Mwah! All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.